Hello and welcome to Access Chat. I'm super delighted to welcome back Alexandra Notnagel, who, of course, I know pretty well because she works for me and with me running our programs around accessibility at Atos. But this is your second Access Chat, and really the first one was quite early on in terms of your engagement on our programs, and it's been a while now. So welcome back, and can you tell us a little bit, reintroduce yourself, and tell us about what you've been doing and what's exciting right now?
Thank you, Neil. Yes, so I'm Alexandra Notnagel. So I'm a mid-30 German woman living in France, and yes, being disability activist for many years, but also, as you mentioned, working with you and the corporate space on organizational change programs. And so, yes, I think it's 4 years ago, around that time, which we got to know each other, for the role that I have today, which is then around 2 years back, but I saw the last time that I spoke in Access Chat. So a lot happened since then on personal level, but also on the work level. So I think it's a very rich time of change, not only for the organization, but actually for myself and for the work we deliver together. And so it's great to make the point again, because actually just getting asked to come back to Access Chat, watching the video from 2 years back, I realized how much has actually happened, which is worth to share.
Yeah, excellent. And we're recording this on the 4th of December, the first working day after International Day of Persons with Disabilities. And as you mentioned, we first met through an event that I was running for IDPD 4 years back. So I think that in itself shows the power of social media. Even within an organization like ours, it was social media that connected us and not internal systems. So the work that we've been doing on Access Chat connects people across and inside organizational boundaries. So I thought that story was always a nice one to share, because having been approached by you, talked to you, then it was clear to me that we needed to have you as part of our program. So these events, these celebrations, sometimes people say, "Oh, it's pretty performative. What's the impact? Are organizations just out there doing something to whitewash their reputation and so on?" But actually, they have a purpose, and clearly, in the case of this, it had an outcome, which has led to other outcomes.
I agree, and I'm going to come in here. First of all, also I'm going to try to be disciplined about doing this in the future, but I'm going to do a visual description because we are talking about identity here. So I'm a older white woman. I'm sorry, mature white woman with silver, gray, and purple hair, and I have on a black top with white flowers on it today. And the reason why I wanted to do that is because, Alexandra, for those of us who can't see her, she looks so lovely today in her color purple. And also we were talking, once again, before we got on air, we were talking a little bit about identity. And I realized that I always do that on my other show, but I forget to do it on Access Chat. So I just thought I'd take time to do that. But I also wanted to come in here in a different point too, because I appreciate the corporations. I appreciate the corporate employers. I get annoyed with them, extremely annoyed with them. I think you're not doing enough, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but at the same time, corporations, as we know, are made up of people. And so I appreciate brands like, Atos or any other brand that meaningfully include people with disabilities and then allow them to have a voice to help you shift your business so that you can be even more successful. And yet I don't really see that happening in most of the brands that are talking out here. I don't see you really meaningfully including us and then giving us the ability to share our voices in whatever ways we want. But I do see organizations like ATOS doing a real good job with it. I also I'm sorry to say nice things, but I also really appreciate the CEO of ATOS that became part of the Valuable 500 mentoring Alexandra. So these are things that as a community, we can see happening step by step to see whether or not we're really being included. Are we being promoted when we get in there? Are you training us? Are you really, really adapting or adjusting or accommodating so we can be really powerful for you? Or are you checking the box? And so I think we got to celebrate that as well. And sometimes we're going to brag about big brands. Could they do more? Oh, yeah. But right now, let's celebrate. So I just wanted to sort of say that because I don't work for ATOS, and ATOS has never once given me one penny. I've never had a contract with ATOS. And so, yes, I do love Neil, and I love Antonio and Alexandra, but I'm talking to the community now. This is how we tell whether or not a corporate brand is actually trying to include us. So, Alexandra, what do you think about that? Do you think corporations they need to be more mindful about really including us and sharing our voices in whatever way? We might be not be able to speak in the traditional way, but what do you think about that, Alexandra? A company really walking the walk?
I think the question is very difficult to answer because there's two sides. There's the corporate who wants to include a person with disabilities and let them talk, but then there's all the regulations, laws, and constraints which would, make the corporate afraid on how can this actually happen? How can this look like? Did everyone do this? How do the competitors do? And so here one part is also the other side, the brave people like my manager here, Neil, speaking about it openly and shifting some of those borders by being proactive and giving role model examples. But then the understanding of a person, all the people involved who could speak about their disability or their impairment, health condition, or so on, who don't see the value. Why should I share that for the corporate? What's the value for the corporate? What's the value for me? Why should I do that's private? Okay, so that's a triangle actually between people who are already aware and doing and sharing. Like today, I'm myself one of those people starting to role model for some time now. But the beginning, right, when we speak about doing the retrospective, when I joined Neil's team and then when I joined the role, it was a very difficult decision. Okay, so it's not something where you can just ask, oh, do corporates really do? It's what do corporates do to put people in a safe space and situation that they can self-identify and speak up without consequences, which are bad for their role or job.
And I think if we go beyond even that, we also need to help the corporations feel safe in that journey to creating the atmosphere, because actually there's quite a lot of nervousness amongst the corporate management about these initiatives, because
which will be valuable.
Yeah. So there's definitely a challenge in making sure that the management feel comfortable with people talking about their disabilities at work and starting initiatives to create that culture of inclusion, because actually it's quite challenging when you're thinking about this in multiple different locations and countries, and the complexities of dealing with unions and workers' councils and all of these kind of things that quite often don't get thought about when from the outside you're pointing at a corporation and you're saying, well, why don't you immediately do this? Well, there's a reason why corporations move so slowly. It's because they're complex beasts, and so some of the removal of fear is not just for employees, but also for the corporate side of things in terms of management as well.
Exactly. And speaking publicly about it for the employee, but also for the corporate, depending on what they said, it can have risks. Right. So for the employee side, for example, openly speaking about a condition or disability, right, looking at all the data which are available, let's think about insurances. What will happen to those information actually? Sometimes, you don't really know where it will go. So it takes really some uncertainty for the person doing it. And the corporate side on, okay, how to actually ensure beyond our borders, because what we can build as a corporate is what is in-house. So what will we build, for example, with accessibility program for the safety of self-identifying employees within the company, but what goes out and what is beyond, okay, going back to social media, that depends on many other partners, suppliers, other platforms. So we're not alone in this. It's the full ecosystem which needs to protect actually better people with disabilities' interests to in the full wide corporate context, because it's not exactly the same if you share about your needs in an internal survey which is anonymous, if you share it within a HR department with your manager or the colleagues, or if you share within specific program like a mentoring program which is dedicated for this, but where the constraints are clearly owned by the corporate, or if it goes beyond, if it goes outside. So what we can be really proud of, I think, here this year is something which we managed to do, is that people go out more openly about their conditions, speaking about the prettiness and the power of assistive technologies they use, making colleagues understand the value at the workplace, and also showing that there's real people using the company, that it's not just some theoretical opportunity or possibility that this could be used if there was someone, but there's people all along the different career levels and needs which have spoken up for us the first time also publicly for those tools. And so not sure what you want me
to. I think
the
Debbie had
self-ID myself.
Yeah.
Yes, good point. I think we have a little bit of technology delay, so we might speak over each other a little bit, but I want to shift it just a little bit. So once again, I think we should all celebrate. I'm sorry, I love to celebrate. And also, this is my birthday month, so I love to celebrate the holidays and my birthday and my partner Gary's birthday. Yeah, so we can just celebrate. But also, I think something that I want us to really think a lot about as a community as we celebrate the International Day of Persons with Disabilities is the leaders, the wonderful people that are already working for brands like Atos, people with disabilities that are really coming in and, owning who they are. Like, once again, Alexandra had made the comment about Neil. Neil has been very open about his ADHD and his dyslexia. And so, and I took a page from that and I also started speaking about it. But when we know that there's about 70 to 80% of us that have invisible or hidden disabilities. But so taking that back a little bit more, just digging into this a little bit different, I think that we have an opportunity here with the people. Certainly, let's celebrate the employers like Atos that are including us and making sure the voices can be heard and learning from these really powerful voices of people with disabilities. But I think this is really a question, or to both you, Neil, and Alexandra, what can we do as people with disabilities that have identified and we're coming out, we're talking about it? What can we do to encourage others that are also in the workforce to come out and identify proudly, even if, sadly, I know this conversation we have a lot in the States, there might be negative consequences to them. I mean, unfortunately, we see discrimination happening all over our country. I'm just going to say that about my country, but y'all all know it happens to everybody else too. So, but at the same time, I think that we have a real opportunity. Those of us with disabilities that are actually employed, we become sort of the elite, right? We become not the elite, but the privileged, as we use that word in a weird way. And so I think we need to have maybe some conversations about how we, as the people that are working for these corporations or have our own businesses or whatever, what do we need to do to make sure that our fellow people with disabilities that are not in the workforce and are not being included in the workforce can be more meaningfully included? Don't we also have an obligation as a community to make it more welcoming? Instead of, it feels like often the conversation is always like, you employers better find us and you better get out there. But do we have an obligation? Are there things we can do as a community, celebrating every one of us, whether we're working or not, to really allow our community to become more discoverable so that employers can be more successful with us. And I know that's a whole bunch of words. I apologize, but I was trying to ground that comment. So Neil, go ahead.
Yes, okay. So I think as employers, we want qualified candidates, and I don't care whether they have disabilities or not. I encourage people with disabilities that are qualified candidates to apply for jobs. So because we still need people with skills to do the jobs, because we're businesses, not charity. And what we can do as businesses is contribute to skills initiatives so that we can create those skills so that people with disabilities are then qualified candidates, rather than this being some kind of charitable endeavor, because that's what the intent of our program is to close the disability employment gap, and you close that gap through creating skills that the market wants, right? That we absolutely want to employ people with disabilities, and we absolutely need their skills and their adaptability and their ability to innovate. But we need to make sure that those skills match the needs of the business. So we can do that through coming together, through initiatives that create digital skills, that create business relevant skills. And to quote our mutual friend, Susan Scott Parker, we don't want to be teaching people basket weaving and piano tuning, because they need to be the skills that business want today. So why not create skills in creating prompts, AI? Why not create skills in being able to understand automation rather than low-end jobs? Because we want people to have the same kind of career prospects as anyone else. And I think that this is something that Alexandra's done a lot of work on, particularly in some of the partnership spaces that we're working on.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for speaking about that, Neil. So there's something in the question that I really love from you, Deborah, about the responsibility, or even if it's an obligation, to speak up. And I think here there's the first obligation for the people with disabilities to take into account is to be to recognize they're part of the community, rather than continue struggle, and then say, oh, it's okay, I won't ask for help. So the first thing is to become visible by requesting if there is something like in our organization, but maybe in others, which offers support. And because this is the first data point the organization will have to understand there's this community. So it's the first step of visibility to get this, to take care of most possible responsible about what we can do and what we can't do, and where we recognize that we have limits, but we can overcome, maybe with the help of our organization.
And
so
that's okay. I think we're having a few audio glitches. It's the joys of the internet. So the other thing that Deborah's done, and sending the love back to you, Deborah, is the whole sort of disability identity piece around Billion Strong, because it's when we bring our voices together that we really have power. So I think that as advocates, we need to share each other's stories. We need to highlight the value that people bring to society as a whole, that really sort of then magnifies that and amplifies that. And we, spend a lot of time in silos. And so we absolutely, and I think you were putting in the chat, Alexandra, the second step is to meet with others and bring that together.
Yes. Exactly. So what I, for example, started to do far more than I did before. I already did before, but meeting other people with the same type of disability, exchange the knowledge, and not just stay isolated with what I learned, but also give back to the communities, for example, I belong to. I think it's the first time this year I spoke in the international meeting of people with autism in France, for example, sharing about the professional inclusion story. And it's actually far more important than we may consider to break the isolation, beyond the border of our workplace and meet the other people to share our stories and to get motivation and insights from others on what we can do better, but also share on what we've learned, what works well or what doesn't work. And here I think there's again some risk, which is if it's going well, like for example in my case, going well, you're at risk to be aggressed by your own community, saying, "Oh, but this looks fake, this looks too good." So also, if we're people with disabilities sharing about it, I think we need to be kind to each other in the communities.
Yeah, so I agree.
See, not everything may be possible for everyone, but I break up again.
Yeah, no, it's okay. So I agree. We need to show that empathy and that kindness and that inclusiveness. So I think Deborah had a comment, and we need to close.
Yes, we will close. And also apologies for the audio problems with Alexandra, but her comments are so good. So we want to hear from her more. But Neil, thank you so much. You go ahead and close.
Okay, so thank you to our supporters, Amazon and MyClearText, for keeping us captioned and on air. And we really look forward to continuing the conversation on social media.